Where was I in history? When I look at a lot of the photos and I research, I don't see my hair represented. Now, obviously, I was there, or my DNA was somewhere on the scene, but I don't see me pictured. Perhaps some folks didn't think I was worth, or my prototype or phenotype was worth photographing. There was a time in history when this texture of hair was seen as unsightly and needing to be covered up. In particular, on my hair journey and my return to natural, which has been over 35 years of return to natural, this most recent chapter has been with locks, as someone with very kinky, fine Afro textured hair. And so I really don't see this hair represented. So I'm wondering, where was I? Was there anyone that allowed their hair to lock up who wasn't necessarily Rasta? Did any women go down the rabbit hole, other than on the continent, but I'd be interested seeing on the continent too, but in the Afro people's experience in the diaspora, was there anyone that played around with sculpting and managing our hair without the stress, really celebrating and being creative with what it was that we have? I realized, like, I like my hair, I like my features, I can appreciate the features of other humans with different shades of skin and different shaped eyes, different shaped noses. I can appreciate all the variation and the different types of grooming techniques and doting on ourselves. Yeah, I realized I don't want to look like anybody else. I don't want to be like a cheap imitation. I don't want to be a struggle bus imitation of someone else. Like my own hair, even if it was bald, which I have shaved my head bald as an experiment to see how it would feel, is good enough. I've shaved it very low, just let it grow out of the baldy or the peach fuzz, as I like to call it. I've cut different designs into my hair, some of them inspired by little African princesses, a Dahomey princess I saw in a picture, because I can resonate. I saw myself represented, and I have never felt more, not just pretty, but I felt attractive. I felt validating in a way that's very healthy. There has been nothing to compare to the epiphany that I do not have to dramatically alter myself or to make myself look like something else in order to feel attractive. A lot of the ideas of attractiveness have come from the times where, as a little girl, I didn't know any different than I just was. I wasn't really thinking about my presence. But once I started to become socialized in public school, right, to groups and groupthink as humans as we do, I never had the thought of myself being ugly or unattractive until it was in comparison to others, to not being included in a group, or if my eyes were in a certain shade or my skin tone was in a certain shade. I didn't know anything about that until I encountered other children who obviously picked these behaviors and social mores up from the adults around them. And I remember it didn't feel good to feel ostracized. And this is what, children and little humans, do to each other all the time. In addition to the hurtful teasing and the name calling, it's become so normalized and ingrained in our culture. It's dismissed. People tell you not to take it seriously or that words don't count. Yet we can see that they do make a difference. And I look forward to a time where we as individuals take the time to perhaps have a communication without autopilot our ego sense and dial in to the fact that why am I condemning somebody else for their looks, their packaging being different? Like, That's not cool. Does that really, really feel good? What is it about that part of our mental processing, right? Of our brain, that part of our mind, our mental conditioning, that wants to ostracize others or wants to be made to feel better than others? I think we've all been affected by this type of conditioning. And I want to challenge my own mental conditioning. I notice if I catch myself, my autopilot, like a judgment. Now, I do think there's a distinction in judgment of common sense and discernment, in contrast to judgment in terms of condemnation for something that's superficial, which doesn't necessarily say enough about somebody's character, their work ethic, or their willingness to be reciprocal, right, in relationships. Though to catch myself, if I was judging somebody and it's an autopilot on their fitness level or what I perceive about them, with the story I make up about somebody, it's interesting to catch it silently as it goes on and to question it and say, wow, that's interesting. Isn't it interesting how much of an autopilot we put on people with the stories we make up about people? And quite often it can be inaccurate. Some of it could be accurate, though it doesn't tend to really tap into other people's, their humanness, their humanity, right? And so perhaps it's fear-based, right? I've mentioned a lot the 5 or 6 basic fears: fear of loss of love or never finding love, fear of poverty, fear of old age, fear of death, fear of illness, and fear of criticism. And these basic human fears, they level the playing field. These fears have us act out and hoard resources or want to ostracize others. And it's really a doozy with the human conditioning. So, where was I in history? I still don't see this. And if you don't see yourself in history and you want to see yourself, what should we do? Right? Should we just struggle to fit in? How sustainable is that in terms of us feeling really, really good about ourselves? Or shall we push the envelope and be creative and risk the judgment of others when we dare come outside or show up to an event with our hair looking so, or with us dressing in clothes that are not the latest style, that don't don a whole bunch of logos, or to wear your no-name brand sneakers, or should you forbid come outside with no makeup and look like what you actually look like as a human being as you go through all the phases of life. So one of the things I've really enjoyed in some of my research, and there's certain things that I've always been attracted to. I really have a love and an appreciation for women during the Victorian age, in the 18th and 19th century, in the 20s. I'm always looking to see how we were faring. Where am I represented in history? How are these women getting along, right? I didn't know that, I don't know who was in the 60s, that women became able to get a bank account without permission of their husbands. Wow, that's deep. And if we think of back to the time right out of slavery, right? We have Juneteenth as a celebration. But right after that period, the Reconstruction era, how were women getting along? And folks were really eager for education, really eager to be teachers, really eager to coming back into the communities with whatever opportunities for education they had, to open a school or to teach. I'm sure the children were much more disciplined and open and receptive to learning, because it was really valued as a way to really change your positioning, like economically and socially, as a way to break out of poverty. So it seems a lot of that focus, a lot of that maturity has kind of gone along the wayside, and today we witness a lot of escapism, which makes sense, that many people would want to escape and look to fantasy so as not to feel despair and hopelessness. So I hope that sharing these images of what we look like, I don't know, I'd be interested to hear what it sparks for you. I think these women are lovely. They didn't have a whole bunch of makeup on. Maybe some, you know, they had their versions of how they put a little rosiness on. But, you know, my cheeks don't get red in terms of blushing. My hair doesn't behave that way. And I don't want to look like something that I'm not. I've tried that on and it just never fit because it doesn't fit. And so it's one of the reasons why I really embrace sculpting and playing around with this very sculptable hair. It's a very unique DNA feature, and I affirm it, I claim it, I'm being creative with it, and I enjoy looking like myself and sharing myself out in the world while I have the gift of a human suit. So let me know, what are your favorites? Do you have any favorite time periods? I'm curious to know if any of the flowers today, if you expand a look past the popular musical celebrities that are out now, who I know a pattern of, I don't know, it's a lot of what's supposed to be liberation and liberation with our reproductive parts, yet it's not really giving liberation. It's giving a lot of the undertone, I like to say, of, I feel like hopelessness and despair underneath a lot of the makeup and the hair and the logos. And why do I say that? I like to say it comes through the back door, and perhaps the litmus test is how we put ourselves in harm's way, our reproductive organs, and our lack of a connection to a responsibility or the impact of our behavior, not only on the trajectory of our lives into the future and how our choices will dramatically alter our earning potential, our health, our mental emotional stability, but also greatly compromise the lives of our offspring, the future generations, right? Their lives are greatly compromised. So these are just some things to contemplate. Where do you see yourself in history? How does it feel to see yourself, you know, presented with elegance and style? Not necessarily a prude, but just other options. We have options, right? I can appreciate the pixie, I can appreciate the makeup tutorials, but I also really deeply appreciate and want to enjoy, and am intentional about enjoying, the hair and skin that I have been divinely assigned. We deserve to feel comfortable in our own divinely assigned hair and skin throughout all the phases of life. Aging is one of the phases of life, and hopefully we can reclaim being able to go through the different phases of life with some dignity, grace, and enjoyment. Without seeking so much external, sometimes often toxic validation. So some alternatives, right? My grandmother would say, you stay busy, stay out of trouble, would be to get into your movement practice. Those 3 leverage lifestyle practices. Daily movement, firstly because it makes us feel better. Garden/nature therapy, if you're going to be triggered, why not trigger yourself into relaxation? And then peaceful consumption, food that demonstrates that it loves us back. It's a mentality, and the mentality that we have will spill over into our food choices, into what we consume, not only in our mouths, that will become part of our cells and our reproductive organs, but will also become part of our consciousness, right? Reciprocity, compassion for ourselves, for the planet, for the children. And so much is built into having a mentality and some intention around our consumption. And it can still be a lot of fun, stylish, and elegant. Let me know what you think. Create a great day on purpose.